On today's episode of the Grind Hours podcast, this is the first big guest, and I'm okay with saying big guest because she is an up and coming podcast star, in my opinion. She is the co-host of the Breaking Balls podcast. If you are anywhere familiar with Yankees Twitter, she is one of, I think, the three voices of Yankees Twitter, Emily Nyman. Am I missing anything that you're call to fame?
No, I think you pretty much said it all. I mean, I wouldn't mind if you said it over again. That was really nice. Thank you.
I mean, I have to flatter the guest because I think you have a perspective on baseball in particular that is really unique, and it's sort of more analytical than myself. I sort of draw the line at some point. You seem to be more over the line with analytics than I am. And I mean, that's part of the reason why I want to have you on the podcast is to give a different perspective than my perspective, which has been called curmudgeon and the old man on the couch.
Well, I'll certainly do my best.
So let's just jump right into it here. I think is the spring or the summer camp game? I keep calling it spring training. Is the summer camp game still going on, or is it over and done with? Because I caught the first couple of innings. I saw Stanton go yard against Paxton, which we'll get to Stanton in a minute here. But your overall just reflection on summer camp this far, and how many have you actually watched?
I've only been able to watch one in completion, like from start to finish. I've caught pieces of the other ones because they've been starting at weird times. Whereas the first one started, I think it was like 7:00. So I just then assumed that it would always be at 7, just thinking like, oh, like sort of like a baseball schedule that it would just be going on at the same time. But then I would put it on at, 7:30 and it would be over in like 45 minutes or a half hour or whatever. So I've caught a good amount of it. It's practice. You know what I mean? Like I don't put so much stock into it as a lot of people tend to do. I'm never a big spring training sort of fan in the beginning of the regular before any of this sort of goes down and they have real spring training. I'll watch the first game, but that's pretty much it. So this sort of stuff I'm psyched to see live baseball, but it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. And to think that on Monday we were supposed to be gearing up for the home run derby, and then yesterday, we're recording this on the 15th, was supposed to be the All-Star game in LA. So to put that in perspective and say we're still, throwing the ball around in practice is sort of weird. I agree with you to a large extent. I do, however, like this aspect of it where remember last year when everything out of Boone's mouth in spring training was you got to see Gio Urshela?
Yes, I do.
And then Gio went on this massive tear last year and came into his own and was really one of the catalysts for the playoff run last year. I think we're seeing that aspect of, okay, well, the camera's on and these guys are playing. Who's the guy that's going to be the next one? I like that aspect of it. And I think that's part of what teams are going to start, hopefully, putting more of this online or on live TV to sort of bring the fans in on what's going on in the organization. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, so you're saying that you think that moving forward, they're going to televise practices?
Why not? It's like, I mean, maybe not all the, pitchers and catcher drills, like pitchers taking BP or doing the fielding practice and stuff. But if there's guys that really are tearing it up, I think fans would want to see it. There's, I think, a certain appetite for seeing the guy who's the next Gio Urshela who's going to come up out of nowhere and light it up in the Bronx. At least from a Yankee fan perspective. I don't know if it's the same around the country. If you're, say, a Rockies fan, I don't know if you want to continue to watch the AAA guy who may or may not be on the team next year.
I mean, you're definitely right that people would absolutely watch. I mean, people watch spring training every year. So If they
Right.
were televising practices or the anything like that, people would watch. But to be honest, I think that that is unneeded and unnecessary pressure to put on prospects that they're not in the major league level for a reason yet. They are not developed yet, or obviously there's still some service time manipulation that goes on. So
Hmm.
you have guys that may be ready but are still there, but the vast majority are there because they're just not ready to go to the next level. So I think that if you then introduce a like a broadcast or and especially their practices being broadcast, that they know they're on TV. So those guys, I want them to have no distractions as far as that stuff is concerned. I don't want them to be worried about people seeing them and millions of people watching. Like, I want them to be able to focus on what they have to do to reach their potential and to be the sort of athlete and player that the organization has thought that they are going to be, since they've now invested all of this time and money into them. So I think that keep the TV stuff for the games and spring training, those kind of games. But beyond that, I don't know. I think it might be a little too invasive, especially for the young guys.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Some of it I want because there are those guys that break out in spring and then they sneak onto the 40-man roster, and then all of a sudden in June you're like, who the hell is number 38?
Right.
And where did he come from? I like, and homegrown to a certain extent, the minor league show does that to, like, you get a little bit of it, but maybe that's just all we're going to get is homegrown spring training games and regular season games going forward here. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Feed Hudson Valley is a regional food rescue and harvesting network in the Hudson Valley operating through Dutchess, Orange, Ulster, Columbia, Greene, Putnam, and Sullivan counties. It links donors of prepared but unserved food and fresh produce with nonprofits and food assistant programs through an app assisted network of food donors, volunteers, and feeding agencies. Feed Hudson Valley facilitates the harvesting, processing, and distribution of locally grown or produced agricultural products, self-stable food donations, and prepared nutritious foods. The app used is called Chow Match, and it is easy for volunteers to download and use. Among the donors are restaurants, farms, food makers, stores, hospitals, and universities. The food assistant programs include food pantries, soup kitchens, and shelters. Volunteers are matched through the Chow Match app when a donation is available. They can indicate that they are available to make a run and then pick it up for a donor and deliver it to the agency. The Feed Hudson Valley Network currently includes over 300 volunteers, 130 donors, and 95 receiving agencies. Last year, on average, Feed Hudson Valley rescued and redirected over 12,000 pounds of food each month. Feed Hudson Valley could use more donors and volunteers. To learn more and sign up, visit feedhv.org. Again, that's feedhv.org. One more time, spelled out, feedhv.org. Now back to the podcast. All right. In the first block, we talked about some summer camp. I can't say it right. I want to say spring training. Summer camp, it just doesn't seem natural to me. But
And also, summer camp is supposed to be fun. Like,
right,
this
yeah,
isn't a fun situation. So calling it summer camp is like a little ironic, I feel like.
I agree with you. It's the feel of one of those broadcasts, and I actually sat through the entirety of it yesterday. Um, it's kind of like an extended BP show and
Yeah.
pregame, and you're just like, all right, like I'm ready for the game to start. Where's the game actually going to start? It doesn't feel like baseball, and it doesn't feel like an organic thing that's happening, and it's not. And I don't know, what's your thoughts on the pumped-in crowd noise? Because I saw some stuff from Citi Field today with the pumped-in crowd noise, and I guess it could work. I mean, it cuts down on the conversations of people shit talking in the infield or somebody in the dugout that you might the field mics might hear. John Boy might be disappointed, but
He can
uh,
read lips, so he'll
right,
probably be
yeah.
okay.
No, yeah, he's a mastermind with reading lips. So I think and he has the feed. He knows somebody to get the feed of the field mic, so he'll be fine anyway.
I personally, I'm not that into it. I mean, if the players want it, then that's fine with me. Like, I don't really care what they play in the stadium. Whatever the players want is cool. If it's crowd noise, so be it. But if it's for the broadcast and it's for the fans, no thanks. I'm good. I don't need the crowd noise. Like, I would rather just hear music the entire time like they do at the All-Star game
Yeah,
than crowd noise.
yeah, that'd be fun. Last thing on quarantine baseball before we get to actual things that might affect the outcomes of the games. Are you a fan of the cardboard cutout shenanigans that's going on in other stadiums?
Yeah, I think that's a very because they can't have fans, and the major leagues, they don't really have to resort to all these different gimmicky things to get people into their ballparks and to buy their product. I think that this has a very like lower level baseball feel about it, and I kind of like that. I mean, granted, some of the prices are like $86 or whatever, and that's certainly not cheap for some people, but it still is kind of like a gimmicky thing. So I kind of like it. Major League Baseball has sort of become stodgy and buttoned up, so when they have to do things like this, it's kind of funny.
Uh, my opinion on it has softened a little bit. When I first saw that, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! I'm not paying 80 something dollars to maybe get a foul ball hit at my cardboard cutout." And there's no way there's no possible way you're going to see yourself on TV because the companies are going to buy out all the lower bowl seats and like the 100 level seats, and you're going to be stuck with you're I'm cardboard cutout in seat 327. Like I don't want that,
I guess
but
it's just to be able to say that you did it, because like this is going to be a year and a situation and time in our history that is going to be talked about for a long time for every aspect of society and our perspective on it. So I think it's just going to be one of those things to be like, oh, you know how there were no fans in the stands in
right,
2020? Well, I actually was in the stands. I was in this seat, and
right.
like I'm sure they'll do something like have a picture of it taken or something.
Maybe if you send me the ticket stub of the game, just to be like, see, I have a ticket stub from August 14th against the Blue Jays, then I could get down with that. I mean, I'd still be paying 80 something bucks for a ticket stub, but I could get down with that.
And it'll be really funny when a lot of people do that. And I hope that I see some of the same people doing that were the same people that were like sort of lamenting for the owners, like oh, the owners, like their plight during the labor negotiations. And it's like, see, they just sold you a cardboard cutout of yourself in a stadium. Like,
Right,
what
and
the hell?
you bought it and you like there's
And
going to
try
be
to tell me that
people,
this product isn't profitable.
right. I, for me, if you're a season ticket holder, you should automatically get a cardboard cutout.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they're doing something like that.
If not, then I'm like, well, why am I buying season tickets? Like, I would be okay with that if I was a season ticket holder. Ticket holder. I had 5 tickets to games this year, and I was gonna buy like 10 more. But
Shit.
I mean, though, all my games have come and gone. But that sucks. But
Yeah. I
let's
was supposed to be in
trans.
a suite in May,
Oof,
first Legend suite.
oof. Yeah,
Mhm.
that stings. That really stings.
Well, fortunately, the this it was I don't know if you know Batista, Adani Batista. He's also on
Mm-hmm.
Yankees Twitter, and he's a season ticket holder and has been for a long time. And he has a suite, so he'll offer tickets to people on Yankees Twitter. So that's what we purchased. And obviously, the game was canceled. Everyone got their money back. But then he offered everyone that had a ticket to that suite to a free suite game next season or whenever they allow fans in next.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah,
I'm
that
pretty
guy.
pumped for that. He's awesome.
He
Great dude.
I've seen he's one of my shadow follows. I don't really follow him, but enough people on my timeline either like or retweet his stuff. So I mean, it's I basically follow him. So I might have to send him a follow after this podcast. But
For sure.
let's transition into some X Factor stuff.
All right.
And the guy at the top of the list for me is Giancarlo Stanton, a guy who only played 18 games last year. Yes, he did have an above average OPP or OPS plus if you played a full regular season with at a 138 OPS plus. He had a almost 900 OBP or OPS. He had 3 homers. He had a big homer in game 2, I believe, of the ALCS against the Astros. And I want him to stay healthy. If he stays healthy and he produces like we know he can produce, then he's worth the money. But if not, then it's shades of, and I know this is going to hurt you because this is your favorite all-time player. It's shades of like 2006 A-Rod and and if he just continues to be on the shelf of Jacoby Ellsbury.
I mean, we would be so lucky if he was A-Rod. People always make that comparison, and it's like we should hope that during his time here, during this first long contract, that he wins 2 MVPs, and then in the next one wins a World Series. I mean, first of
Right.
all, but I digress. I think yeah, as long, I mean, his statistics and his even his analytics, everything, obviously, because the traditional will tell you the same story basically as the analytics and vice versa. When he's healthy and he plays a lot of games, he is an elite player. I mean, he's an elite player even when he's playing 18 games. I mean, you see what he did last year. It's a
Right.
small sample size, granted, but it still is pretty indicative of the rest of his career. So when you see the seasons that he's played in over, 100 games, he's putting up insane numbers, like Hall of Fame level numbers. That's the sort of trajectory that he's on. So when people sort of assume that he's not going to perform and they cry about his strikeouts, it's pretty short-sighted in my opinion.
When do you think people are going to stop crying about strikeouts?
Never, never,
Really?
because yeah, because I mean, actually, I mean, maybe there's hope for the future because
Because
of the push with analytics, and it's really forcing the average fan and the casual fan to come to terms with aspects of the game that they're not bad per se. It's not like they're just part of the game. Strikeouts, errors, they're part of the game. So judging a player by those aspects of the game, especially when the other aspects of the game are so top notch, it's really short-sighted, and it's just doesn't make any sense.
I
But they
think
will
errors should
because
go
they're
away.
starting to realize it.
I really think errors should go away. If you put the ball in play and I mean the wind takes it 5 feet and the fielder doesn't grab it, then I mean it's a hit. So what? It doesn't. Errors have no really statistical impact on the game.
No,
And
because they're also at the discretion of the official scorer in the
right,
stadium. And
who's a
also
human
they
being?
exactly. And it doesn't take, because much like the issues with batting average is that fielding percentage, because that's what we're talking about really, it doesn't take into account that different plays, different positions, they all have different value. Like you not every hit is the same. There's singles,
Especially now
doubles,
with
so
the shift.
right. Yeah, exactly. So when there's no value being assigned, it's just a counting stat. It doesn't tell you anything at all, especially fielding percentage.
To continue with Stanton here, are we going to be upset if he doesn't perform and he bats 220 and has 19 homers and or let me adjust the 60 game schedule. 12 homers? Yeah, I think people are going to be pissed off. Yeah, they'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it's 60 games, but this guy is being paid to be 2017 Judge, 2007 A-Rod, even though I know he was juiced, but still the level of production, that's the guy we need him and we want him to be. And I just I want him to be that player. I'm not saying I don't. I'm personally out on him because of the whole I'm not going to play in game 7 or game 6 when our season's on the line last year. I really thought he should have been in the lineup. I know he had a calf injury or was it a calf or
It was
some
either the calf or the knee. I mean, but do you honestly think that's his decision? You think that he's like, nah, I'm gonna sit?
I think he has enough sway in the
I
organization,
think
even though he hasn't been here that long.
no.
He's one
I
of the
think
highest
that
paid players in the league. So if he says I'm going to play, I don't think I don't think there's many people that are going to tell him, hey, look, you got 8 more years of this. We don't especially
I think you're putting way too much stock in how much flex a player has in those sort of decisions.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just the guy that's like, well, if it was me, but like everything about the Yankees, it's we need to win titles, and we haven't won a title since '09. And I know there's fans, and some of my friends kill me for saying we. One of my friends is an Indian fan. He goes, I've never seen a World Series title in my lifetime, and neither has my father.
It's like, yeah,
So,
and that's why you have low standards.
and I'm like, no, it's an eternity in New York, and I think with the Cole signing, things are starting to change, and I think 2020 is being looked at like 2009 was, where we have to win one. And if we win one this year, the pieces are in place for the continued success, and it could turn into 96 through 2000. Would you
Over the course of
use
the next few
Stanton
years.
as a DH solely and treat him like Big Poppy?
Who?
Stanton, would you treat him as a like he is your DH?
I kind of like how the Yankees rotate it. So I don't mind that. Stanton is a pretty, he's a pretty good outfielder. It's not like he's shitty like Big Poppy was. Big Poppy was terrible in the field. You couldn't put him in the field.
Right.
But Stanton is pretty good. So I don't mind the Yankees rotating to keep these guys fresh.
The only play I don't think I would put him in left field. I think there's a sort of psyche thing where Stanton was an above average defender with the Marlins in right field. That was his spot, and then to say, well, we already got we got Judge, so you're not playing right, so we're going to stick you in left field, even though you really haven't played left field ever in your life, especially with a guy with the outfield depth that you have. I don't think you need him in the outfield. I
No,
think
you certainly don't need him in there, but he can play.
he can play, and I wouldn't play him unless I needed, unless all three guys in the outfield were completely gassed. And even then, you got guys like Andujar and Frazier who are serviceable out there. And Miggy hasn't played a major league game out there yet, but he's looked okay in summer camp. And
Frazier.
uh,
Frazier looks horrible out there.
well, Frazier, he's walking on,
Walking on sunshine.
tissue paper and glass. He's pretty fragile, but when he's out there, he can hit. And
Yeah.
he's
I
a
don't know if
guy.
he's fragile. I mean, he did get a concussion. I wouldn't call
Well,
him fragile, but he
no,
is shitty in the outfield.
everything, everything. I'm not talking about the concussion. Everything post concussion, and maybe there's some lingering signs because that's something that can linger. And I mean, other sports guys like Luke Kuechly or even former Yankees Brendan Drury, who had migraines that I'm almost positive were symptoms of a concussion that he had previously in his life. Uh, that's a daunting task in itself, but he's been on the DL multiple times with wrists, with an ankle injury a couple of years ago, and he was nursing plantar fasciitis at the beginning of summer camp. So he's injury prone, but he can hit, and that's the reason why I think you shouldn't give up on him. But with other players in the pipeline, especially guys that are major league ready, like Tyler Wade, like Andujar. You still have Florial lingering in the shadows with him. So maybe Frazier's days are numbered. I talked about that in the last podcast, but um,
I think that Frazier's, now that the universal DH is here and it'll probably be here to stay,
mhm.
um, that certainly helps a player like Frazier to
Yeah,
open up. It gives a job to a lot of guys that otherwise wouldn't have it because now pitchers don't have to hit in the other half of the league.
especially with the 26 man too
Right.
being introduced.
Right. And if I
Um,
could be honest, I'd take Stanton in left field over Andujar anywhere. I'd rather Andujar be the DH until he gets his shit together defensively. I trust Stanton way more wherever he is.
I agree. I mean, we've not seen much video of Andujar not double clutching wherever he's playing. But really
I'm more
quickly is
concerned, to be honest, about his free swinging. I hope that he's been working hard on his seeing the ball in the batter's box and taking a few more pitches, because his rookie year, he obviously raked, but he did not walk much. So he's got to work on getting on base other ways.
Some guys just don't walk. I mean,
I
look at a
know,
guy
but
like Tim Anderson.
but guys that don't walk, they're not the best players. Andujar has the potential to be a really good player, but if he can't walk, and he's either because he's not going to be the home run hitter, like if he gets up and he gets bigger and he gets a little bit more strength, sure, but if not, then he's got to learn how to walk. Unless he either has to mash and be a home run hitter or learn how to walk, but preferably both. His walk percentage was like 4%, which is awful.
It was putrid, but I mean, he still hit 40 something doubles and was
right. I'm not saying that he didn't play well. He did, but he
no, I
needs to
know.
learn how to walk. He can't be swinging at everything, especially when he's in the league for a long time.
Well, let's say that leave that to Sanchez because his breaking ball chasing is ridiculous, especially in the playoffs. Let's take one more quick break and then we'll come back with something fun. All right, so to end off the podcast, really quickly, I want to talk two things. First, I want to get what is your over under for Boone ejections in 60 games? Because I think he is one of the most. You better call the game the right way, and if you're not, I'm going to chirp your ear off about it. And the word got around the league last year. He got tossed a lot. So I'm going to set my over under at 10. I'm going to say he gets kicked out of a sixth of the games.
I'm going to go under that. I think that he's going to get kicked out way less this year because they can't get in their faces and shit. So I think that it's going to be way less.
Yeah, but he got thrown out. He's been thrown out from the dugout before.
That's true. I don't know. I got some faith in Booney that he may keep his cool a little bit more this season.
All right, last thing that I want to talk about, and I don't really truly know the origin story of this, but I want to know how A-Rod became your favorite Yankee. Is he your favorite Yankee ever?
Oh, yeah, hands down.
How did he become your favorite Yankee of all time?
Well, that's because he was my favorite player first. So when I was really little, probably like 7 or 8 years old, I was a Ken Griffey Jr. fan. I was playing Little League. So I guess I was a Mariners fan, but I was a kid in New York in, the 90s. So it's not like I had MLB TV or anything, but Griffey was the man in the mid 90s. So I loved Griffey, and A-Rod was drafted and then was called up to the Mariners during that same time frame. And I loved him and thought he was cute. And just from then on, he was just forever my favorite player. He was, even though I was a Yankees fan then, because when I was 10, the Yankees started winning a ton. So what do kids do when teams win? They become fans of that team. So I became a Yankees fan, but I always loved A-Rod. I mean, Pettit was my favorite Yankee during those times, but A-Rod was still my number one. So needless to say, February 2004 for me was a very good time when he signed and was traded to New York. So that's the story. That's it.
I think you're the number one A-Rod apologist, maybe in the world, other than maybe J-Lo. But like, it's very rare that you get anybody to defend A-Rod, and there's people out here that hate him, that vehemently hate him, especially now that he's turning face with the ESPN stuff and possibly trying to buy the Mets. Would that hurt at all?
No. I mean, it'll just make me laugh even harder when people continue to hate him and they just want him to fail, and he just continues to succeed. I mean, how much does this guy love the game? Am I right that the game, Major League Baseball went from like paying people to obtain evidence against him to nail his ass to the wall with PEDs to now possibly courting he and his wife to purchase a team and now be a part of this organization. And this guy came back for more after all of that. After the league, the Players Association, every player, and with good reason, don't get me wrong. I mean, we reap what we sow in life, and he made his mistakes and he paid for them by serving the longest suspension in Major League Baseball history, and it cost him like $25 million. So I think that takes a lot of resolve, and I think that I give him credit for that because he could have just walked away and slunk away with his money and just never to be heard from again, and then his legacy only being heralded by me. But instead, he stuck with it, and he grew up, and he matured, and he turned his image around, and he humbled himself, and he's talked about his failures and talked about the bad decisions he's made and reflected on them publicly. And I think that's really admirable. And I think a lot of people don't have the courage to do that kind of thing.
I wish I knew you in 2015 because you must have been borderline as catatonic given your fandom and everything that he went through to hit 20. I think did he hit 25 bombs in 2015 to
Yeah.
end his career before he got pushed out the door because the
Well,
Yankees didn't
yeah,
want
that
to
was
shelve him.
in 2016.
Yeah, they didn't want to shelve him like I think 40 more million bucks because he was going to break 700. But I mean that's a podcast for another day. Emily, I'm so happy that you agreed to do this. The invitation is always open if you want to do more, and
Yeah, I'd love to. This is great.
let the people know where they can find you.
You can find me at She Does It, EMSHEDOESIT, and you can listen to my co-host John. He's at Johnny Does It too on Twitter. You can catch us every Saturday. Our podcast is Breaking Balls. It's available on all platforms. And Joe, thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is always mine. Hopefully, we can get the next time that both of us talk. There's going to be baseball that's actually being played and actually means something.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go Yankees.
On this side of the coin, not the fake J Leo on Twitter, jdatasports.blogspot.com, and of course this podcast. If you've reached this point in the podcast, please like, subscribe, share with anybody who you seem fit. If you're on iTunes, please give us a review. Huge thanks to Emily for doing this. This is not going to be the last time that you hear from her. And a little bit of bookkeeping before we end. If you've noticed, we've got new music, new intro and outro music. That is from Sarah Debman, or her stage name, Sarah the Illumtramist. You can follow her on Spotify. She is awesome. I'm so thankful that she let me use her music here at the beginning and at the ending of the podcast from here on out. That's what you're going to hear. I hope you enjoy it, and big things are coming. More things like this will pop up on your feed. So if you haven't already, I will say it again, please like, subscribe, share with anybody who you seem fit, download the podcast, and yeah, have a good weekend. Till next time. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Peace.